How old are you? 16. You? 16 too. What's your name? Billy. Subplots. They can really help round a story out. They can be bastions for character development, holding patterns for plots that will eventually become the main plot. Or they can just be a fun way to flesh out the world. That's when they go well. They can also careen into nothingness, or of course just derail everything. Times for recording, they're not as in vogue as they used to be, which in my opinion is a shame because they can really help make the world feel more rich. So on today's episode of Casually Comics, I want to take a look at a largely for many forgotten subplot, although I know for some they've never forgotten. It lives with them. We're going to be looking at a romance subplot, ooh la la, from the JSA, the Justice Society of America. And we're going to be looking at the pairing of Stargirl and Billy Batson. And that phrasing is important. She's dating Billy, not Captain Marvel, aka Shazam. At this point still called Captain Marvel. This plot had a lot of potential and it kind of got shoved aside. It moved very quickly and then was never revisited again. Time of recording. Just gotta make sure people know to check the dates. My paranoia, like Batman. It's a bit of a shame because parts of it were really interesting. Now for this, we're gonna have to go all the way back to 2003. Let's set the stage. Stargirl and Captain Marvel are no strangers to the JSA at this point. We're in the middle of a giant The World Is Ending Mordru Obsidian plot, and we're gonna jump in at issue 47, written by Jeff Johns and David S. Goyer. Art by Leonard Kirk, inks Keith Champagne, great name. Colors John Kalitz. I wish my last name was Champagne. I'd totally be a doctor or professor. That's Professor Champagne to you. This issue sees Stargirl and Captain Marvel separated from the rest of the heroes and trapped in the Shadowlands. Because they're there, it severs Billy's connection to the wizard and to his powers, and so he reverts back into his kid form. This in front of Stargirl. What the heck happened to you? What? Let's be cut off from the wizard's lightning somehow. My powers are gone. Wait a minute.
Wait a minute! Who are you?
Wait a minute! Under all those bustles and dimples, you're as old as me? You're just a kid? Kinda. So at this point, Courtney realizes that they're both 16. And then we're into issue 48, which sees them doing a lot more bonding in the Shadowlands. Does anyone else in the JSA know? Just one other really. Black Adam? Black Adam? Are you serious? Now, admittedly, the two get along very well. The way the characters are written, they bounce very nicely and naturally off of each other. They feel quite complementary. Even without his powers, they're able to work together well and battle some of the mental conjurings in the Shadowlands. And there are some strong character moments in here, particularly for Billy, as he's discussing how his powers work and explaining things to Courtney. And they're bonding over that. These stories are good explanations that help showcase the divide between Billy and Captain Marvel. He goes into a story about how his crime fighting made him late for a test, and so he had to take it later. Anyway, I got to school late, right? And we had a test that day. Totally forgot. So the teacher tells me that I have to stay after school and take it. He puts me in the classroom and tells me he'll be back in 20 minutes to get the test. So I'm all alone. I didn't study and my grades are bad enough as it is. So I get this idea. The wisdom of Solomon can help me ace this test, no problem. So what'd you do? I say Shazam and turn to Captain Marvel, all ready to go, but something doesn't let me pick up the number 2 pencil. Suddenly I realize how incredibly wrong it is to cheat, and so I can't. See, all of that, very interesting. Put it in your back pocket or your front pocket, because that's where I put it for later. We're gonna need to come back to that. Basically, Captain Marvel, because of all his influence from the gods, and Solomon especially has a strong influence and is referenced a lot in the story, this has a strong influence on Billy when he's in that form that can trickle back to him and his reasoning. It's less so vice versa. Billy trickles less into Captain Marvel than the other way around. So with this Captain Marvel, you'll get less of the, oh, he's just a big kid and Billy is just inside this adult body. There's a bit more of a divide in the idea that he actually is different as Captain Marvel. They're almost separate people in a way, but Billy's still in there. It's a bit complex. Now, the relationship between Billy and Courtney is admittedly moving so fast, because we go from, wow, you're a kid too, neat, to, how old are you? 16. You? 16 too. What's your name? Billy. I'm glad to meet you, Billy.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Now this moment is interrupted by the main plot. Courtney figures out where Alan Scott, the original Green Lantern, at this point going by the Sentinel, is, and they show up at the location of the Shadowlands, and the Shade's there to tell them that the Green Lantern, the Sentinel, is dead, only he's not actually. He looks pretty dead though. In the next issue, the Shade is low-key making fun of him. He calls Billy the boy who cried Shazam. I chuckled. Now this issue, 49, if you were just to stumble upon it, come into it without any prior backstory, you would assume that Billy and Courtney had been together for a while, just based on how they're acting acting. You have moments like this when Billy comes up with a plan to save the Sentinel. Smart Billy, and without any help from your wizard. More kissing. Now while this is still happening at a breakneck pace, here you can kind of see some of the appeal of it, or more of it. Some people will see it right away, some won't see it at all. It's gonna vary. But here we're having a moment where we see that Courtney likes Billy for Billy, and she's encouraging him as Billy, which is a huge boost for him because he gets a lot of his self-esteem from being Captain Marvel and while he's in that form, because as a 16-year-old teenage boy, he experiences most of those 16-year-old insecurities. And now here he's having a moment with someone who appreciates him for him, and is showing him that he has his own attributes aside from the wizard's powers. And as for Courtney, when it comes to Captain Marvel, he didn't really belittle her like some of the other older members of the JSA, and to learn that he's in reality a 16-year-old like her and that they have a lot in common, plus can talk about this secret superhero life, it's pretty compelling. It also helped for Courtney that before this she had a good estimation of Captain Marvel. It would have been a very different situation if she viewed him, say, the way that she did Hawkman. Although some of you that good estimation of Captain Marvel is part of what for them makes this ship problematic. Yes, I just used the word ship. You could chalk some of the speed up maybe to the whole life or death situation. This brief moment over, it's time to head back to the main plot, saving the Sentinel, other things, end of the world things. And we see that the seeds of conflict for this relationship are already lightly sown in issue 50. Are you still in there, Billy? Yes. Weird. This issue further reinforces this kind of disconnect yet still link between Billy and Captain Marvel. Also, it's a good thing so much else is going on because he's forced back into his Billy form in this fight and no one notices. But there's time for him and Courtney to have another mini moment. She's gotta run up to save him and make sure he's okay. What happened? You're okay. And be better in a sec. Shazam! Now this subplot is left alone for a couple of issues, cropping up briefly in JSA 52. In this issue we see Jakeem, the wielder of the Thunderbolt, starting to get weirded out by some of the interactions he's witnessing between Captain Marvel and Courtney. It's just looking a little sus, the body language is off. This panel is really well done, because you can see Jakeem in the background and you can see them in the foreground. Their body language is kind of flirty, but he's so far away that he can't hear what they're saying, and he doesn't know that Captain Marvel is a kid. So to him it just looks like an adult creeping on a high school girl who potentially has a crush on him. In short, it doesn't look good, but us, the reader, we're given access to the words, so we know this is actually Courtney organizing a date with Billy. She's asking Billy to a movie, and they're going to meet up later once Captain Marvel transforms back into Billy. She likes Billy, not Captain Marvel. It feels like it's both more and less complicated than it needs to be. What, to a movie? Well, if you want to, I mean, I guess that'd be, you know, kind of cool. Just have to change. Totally. Now that you're not, just the kid inside is, yeah. He'll meet you there. Jakeem is understandably concerned, but we leave that for a while. Our next Captain Marvel and Stargirl moment is in issue 54, and separate from this, but still important. This is the Thanksgiving issue. I talked about it briefly over on Kofi. The general story is that the JSA and the JLA are trying to get together to celebrate the holiday together. But there are a lot of members, and some of them are younger, so they set up a kids table, and that's where Courtney ends up. Captain Marvel finds this amusing. No way! A kids table! They put me at a kids table? They can't put me at the kids table. They did. I'm a junior in high school. I'm not. You should be sitting at the kids table. Ixnay on the id-K. This is a short couple of panels, a quick laugh potentially, but it's very important to Captain Marvel's characterization. He's very attached to the respect he gets as Captain Marvel. He doesn't want to be treated like a kid. There's a fear there, and it seems to have been present long before his relationship with Courtney. Contrast that with Courtney, who doesn't have a choice about being perceived as a kid. This is a sentiment we see crop up in issue 57, which we'll get to in a moment, but we need to hop over to another book, because as always with the big two, there are books running concurrently. But at this period in history, they're much more tightly interconnected. Not that you need to read all of them all the time to understand. Sometimes they'll tell you to hop in between if there's an event, but there can be plot lines that will be connected throughout, or that will be referenced in other books, especially in the case if they're being written by the same author, which was the case with JSA and Hawkman at this time period. All of that is to say, we need to go over to Hawkman. We gotta go to issue 23 because Jakeem's not the only one who's noticing things. In this issue, it's Carter Hall's birthday party, and at it, Jay Garrick, the Golden Age's Flash, and a person who looks out for the younger members of the society, notices that things seem a little flirty with Captain Marvel and Courtney. Marvel. Hi, Courtney. Don't you look handsome? That seat taken? No. What is it, Jay? Nothing, I guess.
Now the main problem area is up here. All of this going on up here is what's causing me the most physical discomfort.
I'm also going to show all the panels of this as they sit together because the layout is nice, and then you can just ignore our man just having drug withdrawals in the corner. That's a story for another time. At this this same party, we see that Captain Marvel can't tie a tie, and he's not sure what to introduce himself as when it comes to his civilian name. But you're also seeing how important it is to him that he's including these events as an adult and as part of the group. But we're also seeing that there's starting to be a bit of bleed through in Courtney's relationship with Billy to her interactions with Captain Marvel. The differences about how they're perceived are also cropping up, which brings us back to JSA 57. In this, the two have a bit of a tense exchange on the way to a mission, and they're also all in a plane together, so potentially other people could hear this. You didn't have to come, Stars. What am I gonna do? Stay home and protest that Hawkman's being a jerk? He sees me as a kid, Marvel. Everyone here does, and that's something you don't ever have to deal with. I'm so worried about Al. You like him, don't you? Now is not the time to get jealous, Billy. This mission does not go well. Billy gets captured and forced back into his kid form, and Stargirl has to sneak out and rescue him. She has to go over to Hawkman 25 to do it. She's often having to protect this secret for Billy and help him when he's not in his Captain Marvel form, which one could also potentially infer is part of Billy's attachment to these powers as well, that he's also powerful and perceived as such, and he doesn't need this kind of help. Billy, what did he do to you? Adam Smasher's gonna show us the way. Why are you smiling? The smell of your hair makes a crack job tolerable. Now's not the time, Romeo. All right. Stand back. This is supposed to be a serious moment, but I will never be able to take the line, the smell of your hair makes a crack jaw tolerable, seriously. I can't do it. I'm not strong enough. But that's all right, because we've come to the end. JSA 59. This is a per Degaton story with the tagline, D is for death. I can't wait for the next issue. E is for edgy. Jokes aside, JSA 59 is a very good Degaton issue, showcasing just how broken being trapped in this kind of time limbo can make you as a person. And Degaton was already a mess to begin with. Now the crux of this issue is Degaton going around tormenting different members of the JSA. He's messing with them and then watching their pain and then watching it again. So this is one of those stories, because time travel is involved, where it's hopping all over the place. You're getting all kinds of boxes like 4 hours ago, 8 hours ago, 2 years ago, that kind of thing. Courtney starts off at 4 hours ago, and we see that she's devastated, in tears, and that Degaton is watching and savoring the tears. He's drinking her tears metaphorically. And why is she devastated? Well, one of the things that happens this issue is her and Captain Marvel break up. Yeah, he breaks up with her as Captain Marvel, not as Billy. Billy gets to hide out for that. Is that better or worse than via text? This issue, with an 8 hours ago caption, sees Jay Garrick confronting Captain Marvel about his relationship with Courtney. And by confronting, I mean calmly asking him about it. So Captain Marvel has a chance to explain, and he just ends up making himself look so much worse. We're gonna read Jay slower here, because this is serious business. I don't mean to pry into your private life, Captain Marvel, but under the circumstances, I don't have much of a choice. I'm a little concerned about your relationship with Stargirl. My what? The looks you've exchanged lately have been less than subtle, and Jakeem Thunder claims you two have been going out on dates. Is Jakeem jealous, or? No, he sees Courtney as a sister. He's protective. What do you see her as? Look at that half lighting. The Flash is gonna mess him up. Also, note how well they tied in the prior JSA issue and the Hawkman issue where this was mentioned. So no matter what you read, whether it was both, one or the other, none, it all still can make sense. You can kind of piece it all together. It's complicated. Ooh, one of the worst answers he could give. Let's see how it plays out. Maybe, but Courtney's only 16, Marvel. You're 25. It's not complicated at all. Too many people already know, and it always changes everything. Know what? Just talk to me, please. Why can't you talk? Because my wisdom won't let me, and there's nothing I can do about that. A shame. Because my wisdom won't let me? I know what that's supposed to mean, but it sounds very, very awkward and very unconvincing. What a terrible exchange when it comes to Captain Marvel's reputation. That was his moment. Jay was open to talk to him, and he blew it. The JSA has been subject to weird aging things too, but Captain Marvel flies off to break up with Courtney. And this whole thing is so interesting, which is apparently my word of the video. Captain Marvel would rather be perceived of as a creep than reveal that he's 16 years old. There's so much to unpack there, and it's just gonna travel over into the breakup scenes. That, and there's one panel there where the words get all messed up. It looks like Courtney's so upset that maybe she's having a stroke, but it's really just some kind of lettering error. Billy, what's going on? It's late, and if my mom catches me with a boy in my room. Courtney, I'm leaving the Justice Society. So he's breaking up with her and not even staying with the group. Wow, that makes it look so much worse. You have to tell him the truth. It's breaking her brain. I like errors like this. May it never be corrected. Bask in it. That I'm just a kid under this? I can't, Court, I can't do it. The way they'll treat me. What? Like how Hawkman treats me? Maybe Flash is right. Maybe this is wrong. Change to Billy so you don't have all the gods telling you what's right and what's wrong. Don't let Solomon tell you your secret is more important than me. I'm sorry, Courtney. I care about you. I really do, but I can't. And then he flies off, and then Degaton creeps on her pain, and then watches it again. So she's there just nursing this heartbreak, wondering what she did wrong, even though she really didn't do anything wrong, and then she feels that she can't tell Billy's secret. It's just a mess. It's a hot mess. And that was that. R.I.P. Billy and Stargirl. You barely had a chance. I'm actually not anti this ending, even though it would also have been nice to see maybe this relationship continue on, potentially. Maybe, depends upon how it lands for you. But there was a lot more that could have been executed than what ended up happening. It's very, very rushed. It goes from A to B to C to D, just... Now this plot wasn't just forgotten, it was revisited years later. The breakup was 2004, the revisit was 2009. We take a look at this plot again, starting in Justice Society of America 23, where the JSA need to get Captain Marvel, only Billy at that point is guarding the Rock of Eternity and can't transform, so he ends up revealing his secret, and in the process laments that maybe if he had done so earlier, him and Courtney would have worked out. It's alright, Courtney, I should have done this a long time ago. Maybe you and I would have worked things out if I had. Throughout the next issue, 24, we see that Stargirl definitely still cares for Billy, and he still cares about her too. The two talk about missing each other and even almost kiss before the ease with which they slip back into their chemistry is interrupted by the main plot. Evil Mary Marvel, and she's here to make Billy evil too. You can tell because they're wearing black with red edgings. Then things kind of moved on from the idea of these two, and a couple of years later the universe would reboot. But this couple and the idea of it yielded much to ponder, especially around the time of the breakup, so let's return there for a moment. The last exchange between Courtney and Captain Marvel and the Flash and Captain Marvel was so layered. Because he's not wrong. Were they to learn who he is, they would treat him differently. It would alter their perception, and perhaps they may respect him less on missions, take his advice less, not listen to his plans as much, and it could affect the team. But that's not the only concern that he's worried about, and it is questionable whether that's even the prime concern. Because he also wants to be respected as an adult. And for that to outweigh there being a potential negative perception around him in that adult form because of this relationship with Stargirl, and that's still being preferable to them knowing that he is a child, that's very interesting, and it could be read as a very teenage perception of the world filtering through Captain Marvel, that Billy is really, really influencing him in this way. Or maybe their two concerns align, although later when Billy talks about this, he laments this decision, so there's nuance there. Some would argue that with the wisdom of Solomon, he should never have gotten to that relationship with Courtney in the first place. There are lots of different ways you could take this and different ways to look at it that were presented with many branching avenues. You could do this story many different ways, and that's part of what makes it so interesting to me. Because we also have other aspects. We do have their relationship starting to bleed over into when he is Captain Marvel. Had they stayed together, who knows how much that would have kept happening and how far it would have gone. And then you have the question of how much of Billy is in Captain Marvel. These are all interesting narrative questions to pursue. Though some don't enjoy exploring them as they feel that they transfer over into real world questions and they view that as potentially problematic. Or that the potential problematic elements of the narrative could influence the real world or vice versa, and hence it should be something that should be steered clear of. A fear of normalization of certain behaviors potentially. There was lots to explore with this subplot, but it also had the potential to, if lingered upon, get bogged down or get very complicated and messy. But that was just one potential. It also had the potentiality to be cute and fun. Billy and Courtney were a cute concept and they had good chemistry, and it might have been nice to see that couple hang around for just a little bit longer. You don't always get a lot of genuine young person romance in these comics that feels authentic. At the end of the day though, perhaps it is more interesting to end it where they did and leave so much open to question and interpretation from the reader. There are so many questions about whether the relationship had potential. Did Captain Marvel do the right thing with the breakup? Was this a good characterization of the Captain Marvel Billy divide, etc.? And I'm sure there are more questions that you can think of. On the whole, this was a thought-provoking and engaging interpersonal subplot, and quite so for a romance subplot too. Sometimes those can really drag or fall flat, although potentially this did for some people. Mileage will vary. There is a debate to be had as to whether this plot could have been extended or whether it lasted the exact right amount, because there is a balance to be struck with subplots. You don't want to drag them out to more than they overstay their welcome, or you don't want them to start pulling too much of the focus, especially if that's not the core concept of the book or it's not something that's about to feed into the A plot. And for how much they showed of this subplot, it did stay intriguing till the end, and it still felt like there was more to explore with it, which for some lands in the category of always leave them wanting more. However, as mentioned, some may not enjoy this type of subplot because of some of the tropes that it's playing upon when it comes to the age difference and the body shifting and those elements. For some, it just renders them very viscerally uncomfortable, and even in a fictional narrative space, it's not something that they really want to see explored or dove into, or they feel that sometimes people take liberties in those spaces that are inappropriate. While others, of course, feel that a fictional space is a safe space to explore these concepts. Others feel we just need to stop using the word safe space. The internet's ruined it. So of course, with all of these elements in play, I want to hear from you. This subplot tends to elicit some strong feelings, so I want to hear all of your thoughts on it. Did you enjoy it? Did you like this couple? Did you like how this was handled? Did you want to see more of it? Would you like to see it revisited in some of the modern canons? If so, how would you play it? Because there are so many things that are different now. Want nothing to do with it. It's sick and wrong. How dare you? Disgusting. Cancel. I'm looking forward to some fascinating discussions down in the comments. May they remain fun and full of open discourse. I believe that you can still have interesting and nuanced discussions on the internet. Perhaps I'm naive, but let me have this. Because at the end of the day, this channel is about having fun with comics, discussing the good, the bad, the interesting. Let's all be kind to each other. That was my mom moment of the day, and now for my YouTuber moment of the day. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell notification so that you never miss a vid. Thanks so much for taking some time today to spend discussing comics with me. I always appreciate it, and I will see you again soon.